profile of eastern woodland Indians as compared to other regions. Okay, eastern woodland Indians lived in villages. They lived in log cabins. They grew crops, primarily corn. They hunted, they fished. They did not follow herds of buffalo. That's the Indians that lived on the Great Plains. Okay? So the Great Plains Indians roamed the plains following herds of buffalo. Did they roam the plains before horses? Yes, just at a much slower pace. Okay? Did everybody have a horse when the Indians used them? No, only the men had horses. Women and children and old people walked. Okay? In the Southwest, they built adobe villages. Some of them into the sides of mountains, if you've ever been to the Four Corners area, some of them in little individual kiva type of thing. If you lived in Washington State, you had log cabins, and you hunted and fished. Okay? So the eastern woodland Indians live in villages, hunt and fish, and grow crops. What affected Indians before 1492? A, the spread of corn cultivation. B, spoked wheels. C, domestication of horses. D, smallpox. E, overpopulation. Spread of corn cultivation, and the key here is the date. 1492 means before the Spanish arrived in the New World. Okay? Spoked wheels came with Europeans. Domestication of horses came with Europeans. Smallpox came with Europeans. And there was never Indian overpopulation. Okay, they were doing fine population-wise before the Europeans came, and once the Europeans came, what happened? They died off. And the next one, effects of Europeans on Indians. They pushed them off their land. They killed them off with diseases that the Indians had never been exposed to, like smallpox and measles. They Christianized them, especially the Spanish. In the Spanish, they used them as forced labor. And that's pretty much the extent of the questions they've ever asked on Indians. Okay, explorers for what country? For whom did Hudson explore? The Dutch and the English. The Dutch and the English. Who did Cortez explore for? In Spain. What area? Mexico. He's the one who conquers the Aztecs. Coronado for Spain. He conquers or goes to what area to explore? The southwest part of the United States. He's the one who discovers the Grand Canyon. He's looking for El Dorado, the 7 cities of gold, supposedly, that existed. Columbus for Spain. Cabot for England. Okay. He claims Newfoundland, Nova Scotia area for England. Henry VII, it's the one exploration the English crown ever funded. Joliet and Cartier, both for France. Cartier along the St. Lawrence Riverway, Joliet along the Ohio River Valley, okay, and the New Orleans area, Mississippi River Valley. Why didn't Portugal finance Columbus? Because they knew his calculations were off. Remember, Columbus said you could sail 3,000 miles straight west from Europe and you hit China. And they knew he was full of baloney, so they would never finance him, but Ferdinand and Isabella agreed to do so. In the first century of Europeans coming, what happened? A huge percentage of the Indians died. The Indians, found themselves bowing down to European masters. They began to lose their culture. They were enslaved by the Spanish. They died off. Same thing as the one before. How did Spanish colonies differ from English ones? The Spanish had far greater economic and governmental control over the economy, or over the colonies. Economically, the king of Spain got a fifth of everything that came out of the New World. That's not true with English. They had always, like the viceroys, the officials came directly from Spain. In England, for English colonies, they tended to be colonists who were appointed by the crown if that was the case. The Spanish colonies insisted on Christianizing all the Indians. Okay? The English colonies Christianized very few Indians. In the 1500s, what nation had colonies in which areas? The French were where? Canada and the Caribbean a little bit, like Martinique, Aruba. No, Aruba's not French. Martinique is. The Spanish in Mexico all the way down to Chile, with the exception of Brazil, which was held by Portugal. And the Spanish also had some islands in the Caribbean like Cuba, Puerto Rico. The Swedish, it's a U.S. state. Delaware. Okay, God bless. They weren't there for a long time, but they did colonize Delaware first. The Dutch, New York primarily. Okay. 1588, the Spanish Armada comes to England to put her in her place. Philip is mad at Queen Elizabeth for people like Sir Francis Drake stealing his gold. He's mad that she's helped Netherlands free themselves from Spain. He's mad because, did you have a question, Chris?
What year?
1588. He's mad because Queen Elizabeth won't marry him. So he sends his navy, the Armada, to get her. They get into the English Channel, there's bad weather. English have little small boats. They manage to cause a lot of devastation on Spanish ships, so they start leaving. And they're going to go back to Spain by going up and around the English islands and Scotland and Ireland, and then back that way. They get caught in the North Sea in a horrible storm. More ships are lost, so only a few ships make it back to Spain. The Spanish Armada signals the end of Spain's reign of the seas, the beginning of economic problems for Spain. It signals the beginning of England's reign of the seas, which they are the #1 sea power country until World War I, or I think you can argue World War II. But anyway, until the 1900s. Patroons and multi-ethnic society. Patroons were Dutch settlers. The Dutch encouraged the people to come to New York, and they gave them huge tracts of land. So this section of the room are patroons. They're each given 1,000 acres. The rest of us are peasant Dutch people. We're supposed to come in and be like serfs for the patroons. Most of the peasant type people said to the patroons, we're not going to be your peasants. We'll help you farm your land, but we want 50 acres for ourselves, or whatever the case might be. And Dillon says, okay, not a problem, because he wants to have this 1,000-acre estate. What's multi-ethnic about New York? The fact that there were English settlers, French settlers, Dutch settlers, German settlers, all living peacefully together. And the patroons had no problem with that, okay? When they're talking multi-ethnic, they're talking multi-European. And that's what happened in New York. Why did the Dutch settle in the Netherlands? Was it A, to check England? Was it B, for trade and mercantilism? C, to get supplies? D, for religious toleration? Or E, to escape the king? Trade and mercantilism. The biggest reason that the Dutch settled any place or did whatever they did in the 1600s was really for trade purposes. Okay? Which colony was settled first by the English? Maryland, Delaware, New York, Florida, or Virginia? Virginia. And the first colony was Jamestown. The first one's Roanoke, but it doesn't last, so the first permanent colony is Jamestown.